Speaker Johnson referred to a separate second meeting with him and the president. You referred to it as a moment. Was it a separate sit-down? Was it planned that the president would make that time available, or did that just kind of come out organically after the meeting?
Look, I think the president, you know, wanted to have a one-on-one conversation with Speaker Johnson. They did. It happened after the group meeting. It was a brief. They spoke briefly. It was a private discussion. And so that's how we would call it. It happened after the briefing. He pulled him to the side while the other three left, and they had a moment. They had a conversation. I wouldn't get too into the semantics here. I would just say they had a moment, and I think it's important that the president believed it was important to have a moment and to have a brief conversation with them.
So that sounds more like something that just came up today, not on the planned schedule as you set the date.
Look, it wasn't a planned on the planned schedule. I think the president wanted to have a one-on-one conversation with the speaker. He did that. And he believed it was important to do. Don't have a readout of it, obviously. It was a private discussion, a private conversation.
And if there were any agreement, if the speaker had accepted a premise from the president, or if they had made any kind of a more formal decision in that moment, would that be something you could share?
I mean, look, I think we've been very clear. What we want to see, and it doesn't change, right? What we want to see is the national supplemental as it was passed out of the Senate in a bipartisan way, 70-29, to deal with our national security, to deal with what's going on in Ukraine, to deal with what's going on in the Middle East and in the Pacific. Let's not forget, we want to see that pass. We want to see, because that hasn't changed, right? So there's no separate deal here. What we want to see is this national security supplemental be put to the fore. And we know because we've heard from congressional House Republicans that it would pass in a bipartisan way. That's what the president wants to see. And they heard, the big four heard directly from the CIA director about how dire, the consequences are dire. And we've seen that. We've seen Ukraine has lost ground in the battlefield. And so we need to see that action. We need them to move forward on the supplemental. That's what the president wants to see. And obviously, there's the other issue of a potential shutdown. The clock is ticking on that as well. They got to move. They got to move and stop focusing on extreme positions here. We got to move, and this is about the American people. That's what this should be about.
Thanks, Karine. You said the big four all understand the gravity of the situation in Ukraine, but does the president actually trust Speaker Johnson? Did this move the ball forward at all in terms of convincing him to put Ukraine aid on the floor for a vote?
So, look, he needs to do, this is Speaker Johnson, needs to do what's best for the American people. He needs to do what's best for our national security. He needs to do what's best for our country. He needs to put our national security supplemental on the floor. That's what we know. The last time there was a vote on Ukraine, it got more than 300 votes, including many, many House Republicans. That's the reality. And so, and also keeping the government open. There are critical programs that the American people need. If the government shuts down, Americans don't get those critical programs that they need. And so, look, I can't speak for the speaker and what he's going to do. What I can speak for and what we can continue to reiterate from here and what the president can continue to reiterate is how important it is to move forward. There are national security consequences here, as I've laid out moments ago, and there's also critical programs, important programs of the American people as it relates to keeping the government open. It is literally a basic duty that Congress has, and Republicans in the House are getting in the way of that, and they should not.
And the president sounded confident or optimistic that a government shutdown could be avoided, but we're only days away. No bill text has been released. There are still many, many policy disputes. So where is that optimism coming from?
I mean, the president is an optimistic person. You guys know that. He talks about that often in many speeches that he gives to the American people about optimism and possibilities. That is a president who believes in that. And so, look, he's going to continue to be optimistic. He brought the big four here to have these critical, important conversations about how to move forward here. And it's about the American people. This is not about the president here. We're talking about the national security supplemental. We're talking about keeping the government open, even our border challenges. This is about the American people, so we have to be optimistic. But we're going to continue to do the work. When the Big Four, when the congressional members left, what was agreed upon is that their teams would continue to have conversations, obviously with our teams, OMB, Office of Leg Affairs, to continue to have those conversations on how to certainly deal with what's going on with the potential shutdown as the clock is ticking, and we're going to continue to push to make to reiterate the importance of putting that national security bill on the floor. It already came out of the Senate in a bipartisan way. It needs to go to the floor in the House.
Is it more and more likely we'll just get another CR?
Look, I can't speak to, I'm not going to speak to, how, how Congress is going to move with a procedure. I'll leave that up to them and how they want to move with the CR, if there is a CR. What we are going to continue to reiterate and say from here is how important to get that national security supplemental through, how important it is to continue to keep the government open. And we're not going to stop talking about the border. You'll see the president on Thursday in Texas talking about how important it was to get that bipartisan Senate agreement. And because of the former president, Republicans decided to reject a bipartisan agreement that was supported by the Border Patrol Union, that was supported by U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which you don't see very often in this current political climate.